All my spare parts have arrived. 2 new springs, my elbow for the airbox along with the dump valve, and 2 brand new hoses for my power steering, which replace the originals that were probably original Land Rover, which are now about 30 years old. So I think it's time to do a replacement preventatively. You can see the damage on this elbow where I've crimped it in too much. This replacement is actually, according to the wrapper, made in 2010. It's been sitting on a shelf for 14 years. I don't think it's actually made anymore, so I'll have to take care of this one and make sure I don't damage it as well and over tighten it. I may not be able to get another spare. Here's the old dump valve on the left. You can see it's pretty much open, and here's the new on the right where it's basically pretty much closed. A little bracket. I'll drill these pop rivets out and put the new one on. Now I've decided instead to actually use some nuts and bolts of these. The last lot I did, the last side I put on, I actually used these instead, and it's worked so far pretty good. Instead of having to drill them out every few years, I can just unbolt and put a new one on. Airbox is all dry again, and put the O-ring on. Put a brand new filter in as well while I'm at it. The dump valve has a top marking, so the part that's higher is meant to go up the top. So just make sure you put that on correctly. It took a bit longer than I thought to try and get that elbow back on and line it up correctly, but I think it's back on. I don't think I've over tightened the clamps, so it should be okay. Put the rest of them back on and finished. I'm starting to replace the power steering hoses. I've got one loosened off, just about to see if I can pull it off the power steering pump and dump all the fluid out. Well, it got a bit serious. I ended up having to pull off some of my turbocharger hoses and my coolant hoses just to be able to get these old ones out. Just going to have a go now to pull them out, but otherwise it was just virtually impossible trying to maneuver it around to get them out. Oh, that's much easier. The old versus new. The old ones are actually quite surprisingly pretty good condition still for 30 years old. The hydraulic hoses still seem quite flexible, and I was actually brittle, so that's pretty good. But seeing I've had them since I've owned the car, I'll change them over anyway. So it'll be something hopefully lasts just as long. I tried to buy a spare bush kit for my Old Man Emu steering damper, but apparently they no longer sell them. I could have potentially bought some from the UK if they had some in stock from one of the big Land Rover sellers for about 40 bucks. And in the end I figured this one here is 13 years old now. So I figured, well, for 220 bucks I could just get a full new damper and just be done with it. I'll see how I go when these ones wear out, what I do, if I just change brands and get something different. These bush kits are a bit different as well. The old one had 4 washers with the 2 bushes, but this one's only got 2 washers, and the bushes have that little cutout around the side so it fits into the metal hole, so that reduces 2 washers. The old one's actually still feels pretty good, just nice and smooth in and out, so you know, you probably could have kept it a bit longer, but I just changed it out. I get another decade plus from a new one. Interesting to see if it actually changes the ride at all, because I did have quite a few vibrations coming through the steering wheel when I was traveling out towards Cameron Quarter in 2019. Those really bad corrugations really, came through the steering wheel. So I just wonder if this new one might help a bit. Turns out the steel tube is a bit too wide to fit in the slot, so I'll give these a bit of a file down either side. Try to do it evenly, and it should slot in then. Next, I'm going to install my new heavy duty front springs. It'd be interesting to see if the current ones, which are about probably 11 or 12 years old now, to see whether they've sagged or not. But I've got the springs, and got the extra rings if I have to replace them, and all the new bushes for the front shock absorbers. I've never done a changeover before of the front springs or shock absorbers, so it'd be interesting to see if I can do it myself. From what I've seen online, it's pretty easy. It's just getting the spring in and out that's the main issue. I don't have any, call them spring retainers, or what you call them, spring compressors, but I'll try and do it first without them. If not, I'll go and buy a set so I can get it done. I've got the wheels chocked, front and back, and the center diff lock engaged. Now I'll jack up the other axle, get that tire off, and use the high left jack to get the front end up, so I should be able to get some good spring release there. See, it's fairly loose now. I should be able to wedge that out the last bit. Get the nuts off the shock absorber. I should be able to drop that down a little bit more. Some of these aren't looking too bad, a little bit compressed or squished a bit, but otherwise not too bad for probably 2014. I think I put these in. It'd still be the original as far as I remember. I've only done the rear ones, had to replace those, but the front ones are still the original. One out. Seems like a clamp on the bottom and to it from the top. Should undo it. Check these out for 10 years old. They still look practically brand new. Almost not a single dent or anything on them. Paintwork's still great. Compare that to like my old man emu ones, which did one trip on Cape York, and they're pretty tired look on the outside, but these are just beefcake. That's great investment. The old springs weren't too bad, just starting to get a bit of flaking of the metal coming off. Didn't take too long, I guess, living near an ocean to get that to start happening. That one does look a good deal shorter now, so I just wonder how that works out. I might not be able to get the other one back in, that's the issue. Putting on all the new bushes now, I happen to notice I'm actually missing one of the washers. I didn't notice anything come off when I was pulling everything apart. I've searched everywhere, can't find anything, so I must have had one washer which was never properly installed. I'll try and get that ordered in. For now it'll be fine. But these are certainly look better looking than some of these other ones which are squished into different shapes, and it's a bit flattened out. It's got a nice little angle on these top and bottom, so hopefully these are still good. Got these back as a spare parts in 2015, but we'll see how it works out. Do a shakedown trip anyway, and I'll keep these as spares and see how it works. One I'm missing a washer on. I'll leave it for underneath, so it's a lot easier to put back in later, or order one and fit it another time. I've got all the correct washers I need. The first side is in, as pretty easy in the end, so it's good to be able to know how to do it myself now, but I'll see how I go with that other side. I've made an interesting discovery. I found my other washer, which is meant to be on the opposite side. So there's a double up in here on driver's side washer. So I'm suspecting, because I also had issues with the two rear bushes that were installed on the shocks, those both failed on my first trip around Australia in 2015 because I used the wrong bushes in the kit, and this is on the a double up on this side. So I say the professional suspension company I paid to install them originally probably used some trainee or something who didn't know what they were doing to put it all on, and that's why I got two on one side and the wrong bushes used on the rear kit. So it's pretty disappointing. That's sort of somewhat I've come to experience on more than one occasion. So I'll take the other side off and put this on there now, so I have that other side, which is good. I won't have to order that other part, and I'll get this side all cleaned up. I think I will get compressor and get that in. Two nights and two sides done for the suspension. So that's great to see that finished. Now on to the next task. After a few hours, I've finally got the solar panel stuck down and all the wiring connected in. So I've just added back in the fuse and about to drive it out into the full sun and see what I get. Just checking all my fluid levels now. Everything's pretty much plenty flare, so it's all good. Just got to check the last couple bits and that's it. I've purchased new windscreen wipers for the front and rear. The rear ones are pretty well rusted out. The front aren't too bad, but I was able to get 3 Bosch wipers for around $50 online, so I thought it was a pretty good deal. Well, that's the end of my few months of preparing for my trip. Today's day one for about three weeks or so exploring out Diamantina National Park. Well, the shakedown trip was a success. I've done a few minor other little checkovers. Got my cars ready to go back into action. Let's see how it performs. I'll catch you soon. Ciao.